The sun was setting in the small town of Brooksville. People were gathering at the local bar, the Silver Tap, just like they did every evening. Loud music played, glasses clinked, and laughter echoed through the room. Behind the bar, Kyle, the owner, wiped down the counter. He was young, proud, and often rude. He believed respect was earned by money, not by age or looks. Just as the bar became busy, the door slowly opened. An old black man stepped inside. His coat was worn out. His boots were muddy, and in his hand, he held a simple wooden cane. He looked tired but calm. His eyes scanned the room slowly. People looked at him with confusion. A few whispered. A couple laughed. Kyle rolled his eyes. The old man walked to the counter and sat on a stool. "I'd like a glass of water, please," he said in a soft, respectful voice. Kyle leaned over the counter. "Water? You're not even buying anything." The old man stayed quiet. Kyle smirked. "You look like you came from the street. Maybe you're in the wrong place, Grandpa." The old man didn't get angry. He just replied, "I'm not here to cause trouble." A woman near the end of the bar, Sarah, frowned. "Come on, Kyle. It's just water." Kyle ignored her. He stepped around the bar and stood in front of the old man. "You're taking up a seat for paying customers. I don't run a shelter, so unless you plan to order a drink, you better leave." The man picked up his cane and slowly stood up. He looked Kyle in the eye, his voice calm but firm. "Be careful how you treat people. You never know their story." Kyle laughed. "Yeah. What's your story, huh? Let me guess. Some washed up nobody?" The room went quiet. Some people looked away, embarrassed. The man didn't reply. He just turned and walked out of the bar, his cane tapping the floor softly as he left. Outside, a man sitting in a dark corner watched the whole thing. He wore a cap low over his eyes and sipped from a bottle of water. He stood up, pulled out his phone, and made a call. "It happened," he said quietly. "He disrespected Marcus." The voice on the other end paused, then said, "Understood. They'll want to know." Later that night, Marcus sat alone in his small home just outside town. The house was simple. A few pictures hung on the wall. One of them showed a group of men in military uniforms. Young, strong, smiling. He took off his boots slowly, his leg aching. War wounds never really healed. He picked up a photo of a younger version of himself standing with 5 men in Navy SEAL gear. He smiled sadly. Then there was a knock at the door. He opened it. A tall man stood outside, wearing a black coat and a badge with the SEAL insignia. "Sir," the man said, standing straight, "we'd heard what happened." Marcus sighed. "It's nothing." "No, sir, it's something." Marcus looked into his eyes. He saw loyalty there. "Respect." "I just wanted water," Marcus said quietly. The man nodded. "And instead you were insulted." More silence. Marcus looked past him into the dark road. "They don't know," Marcus whispered. "They don't know what we gave, what we lost." The man replied, "But we remember, and we're coming." Marcus closed the door gently. Inside, he sat down, looked again at the photo of his team, and said softly to himself, "I told them I didn't want trouble. But sometimes, trouble comes looking." The next morning, the town of Brooksville looked peaceful. Birds sang. People walked to work, and the Silver Tap opened like it always did. But something had changed. Kyle, the bar owner, felt strange. He had laughed the night before, feeling proud after kicking out the old man. But now, something inside him felt uneasy. Flashbacks of a hero far from town. Marcus sat quietly in his home. He was looking at an old box full of memories. Inside the box were medals, ribbons, letters from the military, and at the very bottom, a patch. It was black, with a golden eagle and trident on it. The SEAL patch. Marcus touched it with his fingers. His mind went back in time, back to the battlefield, back to the day he saved his team. It was a hot desert. Bullets flew in every direction. Smoke covered the air. Marcus, younger and strong, crawled through dirt to reach his teammate who was bleeding badly. "Don't you die on me," Marcus shouted. He picked the man up and carried him through gunfire. Behind him, another teammate covered him with bullets. It was chaos. Marcus didn't stop. He ran until they reached the chopper. His body was hit, his leg was damaged, but his team lived. They owed him their lives. Back in the present, Marcus took a deep breath. His leg still hurt from that mission. The doorbell rang again. He opened it and found 3 men in uniform. They didn't speak. They simply stood, then saluted. Marcus smiled sadly. "You boys came." One of them replied, "The moment we heard, sir, we may be older now, but we're still a team." A quiet message spreads. Back in town, whispers started moving through people. Someone posted a photo online of the moment Marcus was kicked out of the bar. The caption said, "This is how our town treats a war hero?" Within hours, veterans from nearby towns saw the post. So did local police, and people who had once served under Marcus, and men who still carried his lessons. More phone calls were made. All contacts were activated. The town didn't know it yet, but a storm was coming. Kyle feels the shift. By evening, Kyle noticed the bar wasn't as full. Some regular customers didn't show up. A few veterans walked by the bar and didn't enter. Kyle didn't think much of it until one of his waiters came up to him. "Hey," the waiter whispered, "you remember the guy you kicked out?" "Yeah," Kyle said, annoyed. "That guy's a veteran. Not just any veteran, a Navy SEAL." Kyle frowned. "Says who?" The waiter showed him the post. It had over 10,000 shares. Kyle's face turned pale. Crap. Back at Marcus's house, the SEALs were sitting with Marcus. One of them, an older man with a scar, handed Marcus a small item. It was a clean, fresh SEAL patch. "We kept this for you. Thought you might need it again." Marcus looked at it for a long time. "I didn't want to wear this again," he said softly. "But sometimes," the scarred man said, "the uniform finds you." Marcus looked outside the window. It was getting dark, and the town was about to learn the meaning of respect. The next day, the silver tap opened again, but it didn't feel the same. Kyle stood behind the counter, fixing his shirt and checking his phone. The post about Marcus had exploded online. Thousands of comments. People were angry. Some even called for a boycott. But Kyle just laughed. "Social media drama," he said to his staff. "It'll go away in a few days." He turned to his waitress, Sarah. "You believe all that? That old man's a Navy SEAL?" Sarah didn't smile. "You really don't know who he is, do you?" Kyle rolled his eyes. "He's just some old guy with a cane. Probably made that story up to get free water." A customer at the bar stood up and left without saying a word. Kyle watched him go. "Whatever," Kyle said. "Less trouble for me." The whisper in town. Outside the bar, the mood in town had changed. At the coffee shop, 2 police officers talked quietly about what happened. At the grocery store, veterans nodded to each other planning something. Even school teachers told students about Marcus, how he had once protected their country, how he was a real hero. The town's respect for Marcus grew every hour. And Kyle? He stayed blind to it all. Signs of trouble. That night, Kyle stood outside the bar, smoking a cigarette. He saw a black SUV parked across the street. The windows were dark. It had been there all day. Another SUV joined it. Kyle felt uneasy. He went inside and locked the door early. He didn't know that inside those SUVs were Marcus's brothers, Navy SEALs, watching, planning. Business goes down. By the weekend, the silver tap was half empty. Old regulars didn't return. Veterans from nearby towns stopped visiting. Even the local supply company delayed deliveries. Kyle shouted at his staff, "Why aren't people coming in?" The bartender replied, "They're angry. Everyone knows what you did." Kyle slammed his fist on the counter. "It was just a glass of water." Sarah, the waitress, stepped forward. "No, Kyle. It wasn't about water. It was about respect. The bar's bad reputation." A video started spreading online. It showed a short clip from a security camera. The moment Marcus was pushed out of the bar. People watched it again and again. Comments poured in. How dare they treat a veteran like that? That man saved lives. And now this. Shame on that bar owner. Kyle's phone buzzed nonstop. Hate messages, one-star reviews. Even old friends stopped talking to him. He tried to delete the bar's page, but it was too late. The truth had already spread. The warning. One night, as Kyle was closing the bar, someone knocked on the door. He looked outside. No one was there. But on the floor was a sealed envelope. Kyle picked it up. Inside was a photo. It showed Marcus and 5 men in Navy SEAL uniforms. On the back, a message was written in bold letters. He is not alone. Kyle's hands shook. For the first time, he was scared. Meanwhile, with Marcus sat in his small living room, the lights dim. His brothers surrounded him. They talked quietly, calmly. The town knows now, one SEAL said. Marcus looked down. I didn't ask for this. We know, another said. But the people needed to see who you really are. Marcus nodded. He held the SEAL patch in his hand. Sometimes he said softly, you teach respect with words, and sometimes with silence. Outside, more black SUVs arrived. Brooksville had no idea what was coming next. The wind was strong that morning in Brooksville. People hurried through the streets, whispering about one thing, the bar owner who had disrespected a Navy SEAL. Kyle sat alone in his bar, looking at his phone. The screen showed one-star reviews, angry comments, and photos of Marcus in uniform. His hands trembled. His business was falling apart. The door opened suddenly. Kyle jumped. A man in uniform stepped in. He was tall, quiet, and wore dark sunglasses. Behind him, 2 more followed. They didn't speak. Kyle stood frozen. One of the men walked up to the counter. He placed something in front of Kyle. It was a photo. Marcus, 20 years younger, standing with his SEAL team, smiling, proud. You don't know what you did, the man said softly. Kyle tried to speak. Look, I didn't mean. The man raised a hand. No need to explain. We're not here to fight. We're just here to remind you. He pointed to the photo. Some ghosts from the past still walk among you. Then they turned and left, leaving Kyle speechless. Marcus's story spreads. At the town library, a small group of teenagers gathered around a laptop. They were watching a short video about Marcus's military life. They saw pictures of him rescuing injured soldiers, leading dangerous missions, and standing tall with medals on his chest. A young boy asked, why didn't he ever talk about this? An old man nearby answered, because real heroes don't boast. Soon, more people joined. The librarian printed a large photo of Marcus and pinned it on the wall with a new title, Brooksville's Silent Hero. The news crew arrives. By afternoon, a news van arrived in town. Reporters knocked on doors, asking questions about the bar incident. Everyone had something to say. He's a real hero. He saved lives. Kyle should be ashamed. The reporter tried to speak to Marcus, but his door remained closed. Inside Marcus's home, Marcus sat quietly, polishing his old boots. His cane rested beside him. Across from him sat one of his closest friends from the SEAL team, Commander Price. Price looked at him carefully. You sure you want to stay quiet, brother? Marcus nodded. I didn't come back for fame. I just wanted peace. Price sighed. But the world won't let it rest now. They want to know the truth. Marcus replied, then let them find it. I said what I needed to. Suddenly, Price pulled something out of his pocket. It was an old dog tag, Marcus's. You left this behind after that last mission, he said, handing it over. Marcus held it tightly. His hands trembled slightly. So many ghosts, he whispered. Price nodded. But you lived, and now they live through you. Kyle's breaking point. At the bar, Kyle sat alone. No music, no customers, just silence. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was his mother. I saw what you did, Kyle, she said, voice firm. That man, he saved your uncle's life during the war. Did you even know? Kyle froze. What? Yes, she continued. Your uncle was trapped in a war zone. A man named Marcus pulled him out. We never knew his full name until now. Kyle dropped the phone. His own family had been saved by the same man he had disrespected. Shame hit him like a wave. One last drive. That night, Marcus got into a black car with his SEAL brothers. They drove through town slowly. People stopped and watched. Some saluted. Some placed their hands over their hearts. Marcus didn't wave. He just looked out the window with a calm, quiet face. As they passed the silver tap, the bar lights were off. A sign hung on the door. Closed until further notice. Marcus gave a small nod. Not in pride. Not in anger. Just quiet understanding. Sometimes, justice doesn't need a courtroom. Sometimes, it just needs time and truth. The next morning, Brooksville woke up to something unusual. 4 large black SUVs slowly drove into town. People looked up from their shops and sidewalks. Some stopped walking. Others took out their phones. The vehicles parked in front of the town's old war memorial. One by one, men stepped out. All of them were older now, but they walked with purpose. Strong, calm, silent. They wore simple black jackets, each with the same patch on the arm, the Navy SEAL insignia, and leading them was Marcus. Whispers in the air. The town started buzzing with whispers. They're back. That's his team. They came for him. More and more people gathered near the memorial, unsure what was happening. The mayor even left his office and rushed there. The SEALs stood in a straight line beside Marcus. No one spoke. Their presence was powerful enough. Then, Commander Price stepped forward and faced the crowd. His voice was steady and loud. "We are not here to start trouble," he said. "We are here to honor a man who gave everything and asked for nothing." He pointed to Marcus. "You all know what happened, and many of you stood silent. But this man, this brother of ours, never once used his name, his rank, or his past to demand respect. He simply lived quietly, with dignity." The crowd was still. Then the mayor slowly walked forward. "I speak for the town," he said. "We were wrong. All of us. We owe Marcus more than an apology. We owe him our thanks." The ceremony. A small table was brought to the center of the memorial. On it, they placed Marcus's old SEAL patch, his medals, a framed picture of his team. A young boy from the crowd stepped forward, holding a small American flag. He handed it to Marcus. Marcus took the flag, his eyes wet. Then he said the only words he had spoken all morning. "Not for me, but for the ones who didn't make it home." People bowed their heads. Some cried. For the first time, Marcus was not just a face in the crowd. He was the town's hero. Inside the bar, at that very moment, Kyle sat alone inside the silver tap. He watched everything through the live stream on his phone. His heart was heavy, his hands shook. He remembered his mother's words, his uncle's story, Marcus's calm face. Suddenly, he stood up, grabbed his coat, and walked out. He didn't lock the bar. He didn't care anymore. Face to face, Kyle walked to the memorial, his head low. When he reached the crowd, people moved aside. They stared at him with cold eyes. He slowly approached Marcus. Everyone watched. Kyle stopped in front of him. "I was wrong," Kyle said. His voice cracked. "I treated you badly. I didn't know who you were, but even if I didn't, no one deserves what I did." Marcus looked at him, quiet, calm. Kyle continued, "I don't expect forgiveness. I just came to say I'm sorry. Truly sorry." Marcus said nothing for a moment. Then he looked toward his team. One of them gave a small nod. Marcus turned back to Kyle. "I don't need your sorry," he said gently. "But I hope you learn to respect, not just uniforms, but people." Kyle nodded. Tears welled in his eyes. Then Marcus said something that surprised everyone. "You're welcome to join us today." Kyle's head shot up. "Me?" Marcus nodded. "If you mean what you say, then stand with us. Not behind. Beside." Kyle stepped forward. He stood quietly next to Marcus and his team. It was a silent lesson the town would never forget. A town changed. That evening, as the sun went down, people walked home with full hearts. The mayor announced that the town would build a new memorial wall with the names of local heroes, starting with Marcus. Schools decided to include his story in history lessons. And the silver tap? It remained closed, but a new sign was added to the window. Reopening soon, with respect. 1 week after the town ceremony, Marcus sat in his small living room, looking at an old photo of his SEAL team. His cane rested beside him. The room was quiet, but his mind was full of memories, of deserts, jungles, gunfire, and friends who never came home. Then came a knock at the door. Marcus opened it. Commander Price stood there with a small smile. Behind him were the other SEAL brothers. "We need you for one last mission," Price said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I thought we were done with missions." "This one's different," Price said. "No weapons, just honor." The mission plan. The SEALs sat in a circle inside Marcus's home. Price unfolded a map and placed it on the table. "We're taking a trip," he said, "to visit the families of our fallen brothers. One by one, we'll tell their stories, deliver their medals, and let their families know they are not forgotten." Marcus looked at the map. His eyes landed on a small town marked in red. "That's where Josh's parents live," he said softly. Price nodded. "And they never got to hear what their son did, how brave he was." Marcus held his breath. "I'll go," he said. On the road again, 4 SUVs rolled out of Brooksville. Just like old times, the team moved as one, each knowing their role, each filled with quiet purpose. Their first stop was a small house on a hill, surrounded by tall trees. An old woman opened the door. Her eyes widened when she saw the men in uniform. "Ma'am," Marcus said, his voice soft. "We served with your son." She placed a hand on her heart. "You knew my Josh?" Marcus nodded. "He saved my life, and the lives of many others." They handed her a folded flag and a letter Josh wrote before his last mission, something she had never seen. The woman cried, but this time they were tears of peace. Town after town. The SEALs visited 4 towns in 5 days. Each time, they brought truth, honor, and closure. A young girl received her father's medal. A mother learned the full story of her son's final rescue. A widow heard how her husband had saved a village of civilians. With every stop, Marcus's heart grew heavier and lighter at the same time. It hurt to remember, but it felt right to share. The night by the lake. On the 6th night, the team camped by a quiet lake. The stars shone above, and the fire crackled softly. The men sat in silence, looking at the water. Price broke the silence. "You've changed, Marcus." Marcus looked at him. "Time changes everything." "No," Price said. "This town changed you. These people. That boy with the flag. That bar owner who stood beside you." Marcus smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe I finally let myself change." They all nodded. Then Price raised a glass. "To the ones we lost," he said. "To the ones we found," another added. And finally, Marcus said, "To the ones who still stand." They drank in silence. Returning home. When they returned to Brooksville, something had changed. A large mural had been painted on the wall near the town square. It showed Marcus and his SEAL team, strong, proud, and united. Below the painting, in big letters, were the words, "Real Seat is quiet." People clapped and waved as the SUVs rolled through. Children saluted. Old men took off their hats. Even Kyle stood at the sidewalk, holding a tray of cold water bottles. Marcus gave him a small nod. Kyle handed the tray to the children and stepped back. He had learned his place. A new chapter. That night, Marcus sat on his porch with his team. The sun dipped low in the sky. Price stood up and handed him a sealed envelope. "What's this?" Marcus asked. "An invitation," Price said with a grin. "To train the next generation. Young SEAL candidates. They need someone who's been through it all." Marcus looked at the envelope, then at his team. "I thought I was done." "You're never done," Price replied. "You just take a breath between missions." Marcus chuckled. "Then maybe it's time to breathe and teach." He stood up, stronger than he had in years. The past had come full circle, but something new was beginning. 6 months later, Brooksville was no longer the quiet, forgettable town it used to be. Tourists now visited the war mural every week. School kids learned about real-life heroes from their own town. And in the heart of the community stood a man who never asked for attention. Marcus, the quiet veteran with the cane. But today, something special was about to happen. A surprise ceremony. Marcus had no idea what was planned. Commander Price had told him, "Just wear your uniform and meet us at the town hall at noon." Marcus didn't ask questions. He trusted his team. When he arrived, he was surprised to see the entire town standing outside the building. There were flags, posters, and even a brass band. Children waved small American flags. Veterans stood in salute. The mayor stood at a podium, smiling. Marcus stepped forward slowly, his cane tapping softly against the ground. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor began, "today, we honor not just a hero, but a man who taught us what real respect looks like. He reminded us that kindness doesn't wear a uniform, but sometimes it comes with one." The crowd clapped loudly. Marcus felt his heart beating faster. Then Price stepped forward. "Marcus," he said, "you've always led us with silence and strength. Now it's time we speak for you." He held up a small blue velvet box. Inside was a Silver Star Medal, one of the highest military honors. The mayor announced, "For bravery, leadership, and lifelong service, we present this medal to Marcus, Brooksville's hero." The crowd roared, but Marcus didn't move. He stared at the medal for a long time. Then he looked out at the people, old faces, new faces, and even the children who had once looked away from him. "I don't need this," he finally said, "but I'll accept it for my brothers who can't stand here today. This isn't my medal, it's ours." He looked back at his SEAL team, who all nodded. Kyle's redemption. After the ceremony, as people celebrated, Kyle quietly walked toward Marcus. He held a small wooden box. "I know I can never erase what I did," Kyle said softly, "but I wanted to give you this." Marcus opened the box. Inside was a carved wooden plaque. It read, "Respect is not seen in the clothes we wear, but in the way we treat others." Under it was Kyle's signature, and beneath that, "In honor of Marcus and the SEALs." Marcus placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder. "Thank you," he said simply. For the first time, it wasn't just a word, it meant everything. The bar reopens. Weeks later, the Silver Tap reopened, but it looked completely different. On the wall hung a large framed photo of Marcus and his team. Under it, a plaque read, "Veteran-friendly zone. Respect lives here." Marcus was invited as the guest of honor. He sat quietly in the corner, watching the young bartender pour drinks and treat every guest with kindness. Kyle now worked in the kitchen, no longer the loud man he once was. Humble. Changed. A young couple walked over to Marcus. "Sir, can we shake your hand?" the man asked. Marcus nodded. "Of course." The woman smiled. "Our son joined the Navy because of your story." Marcus gave a soft smile. "Tell him, the real strength is not in the fight, but in the calm after."